I'll call the meeting back to order. Are we all in now, Jen? The planning board meeting, April 1st, 2021 at 6:08. We don't need any alternates, and the approval of minutes, we're still waiting on the minutes, so we'll bypass that. And we'll go right to old business, which is Greg Martinez, Iron Tales 559 Route 109, map 148, lot 001, conditional use application. The applicant is requesting modify an existing conditional use permit to include outdoor entertainment. And I guess now I'll hand it over to Mr. Martinez. I think Greg's on mute.
How's that? Does that everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, obviously scheduled public hearing following our earlier meeting where I have applied to change my or update my conditional use permit to include the outdoor entertainment. I have had outdoor entertainment, as most of you know, and I said in the previous meeting, I've been doing outdoor entertainment from the day I started way back in May of 2011. And unbeknownst to me, it wasn't part of the conditional use permit. So here we are. I have proposed erecting a couple of fences, as some of you or all of you know, to help buffer some of the sound leaving the property. Now, my goal is to continue to meet the noise ordinance, of which, the readings I took last year, I was always in compliance. I primarily do my outdoor entertainment during the daylight hours, but I have also asked that I am allowed to do some bigger shows that would go into the evening. All my entertainment going forward will end by 10 p.m. And these bigger shows where there is a likelihood that I may be beyond the noise ordinance, that will have to go before the selectmen, and I would apply for a mass gathering permit as those opportunities arise. All I can do is perform and be judged on my performance thereafter. I did consult with some sound engineers, and I submitted, I'm sorry. I did consult with some sound engineers about the situation, about my noise and things that I could do to improve keeping the sound on the property. Now, I forwarded, and now I'm uncertain that any of you received the email that I forwarded from the sound engineer. Did you all get it? Because I forwarded it through the code office, I don't know, about 4 or 5 days ago.
I got it.
You did? Okay. Okay, so their position is the fence that I intended to erect, the larger fence, the 12-foot high fence, is going to really do nothing for me. So I have amended that plan to be an 8-foot fence, and all I can do is self-regulate and make sure that I operate within the ordinance. So I'll field any questions if anybody has any questions or specifics.
Greg, so this is John Qua.
Yes,
just to confirm, we know the largest.
John, sorry to interrupt. This is Ben Smith, the contract planner for folks. This is the public hearing for Iron Tales is this evening. So we want to give members of the public who are with us this evening a chance to ask questions to the chair or make comments to the chair, and then the chair will allow the applicant to address those. And if there's any new information or questions that come up, the public will have another opportunity to ask clarifying questions. But I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Chris, the chairman, and make that official ask of folks who are here tonight to talk about Iron Tales to go ahead and raise their hand and be recognized by the chair and address comments and questions to the chairman. Thank you.
My apologies.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, it's going to be a little difficult. I got 2 pages, so if anyone has a question, I'll have to scroll through. So I'm going to leave it open for public comment. I can figure out this computer here.
You have one hand raised.
Yeah, I
Mr.
see
Chair.
her.
My name is Sister Claire Lambert. We have the abutting property to Iron Nails. We're right on the pond. And I'd have to say that, you know, even though it's been allowed in the past, we really consider it not a restful situation when we have music coming through that is not of our choice. In a way, it's like noise pollution. I don't know if others feel that way, but we look to having a quiet atmosphere right on the pond. And when the music is blaring out the way it has been in recent years, I know it's been hard on our older sisters who go there for the quiet. And I'm representing them this evening just to make clear what our position is.
Okay.
So, yeah, so.
All right. Thank you for your comment, Sister. I'm going to have Mr. Martinez, if you can comment back to Sister.
Well, there's not a whole lot I can say to her that's going to change the feeling that's noise pollution. All I can say is I will, you know, I will work hard and diligently to continue to operate within the sound, you know, the sound ordinance.
Any other questions or concerns from the public as well? Lawrence Walsh, is it?
Yes, we have the property that abuts directly behind the Iron Tails, and Sister Claire lives to our right. So we're even closer to you got to the Iron Tail Saloon than Sister Claire. We have the exact same opinion as Sister Claire. There's no such thing as a restful weekend at the lake right now. We've ended up having to leave almost every weekend to even have any peace and quiet, to the point where the doors even rattle on the house at the camp. And we definitely don't support this.
We've kind of tried to tolerate it because we didn't think we had any options, but at least I knew that at 5 o'clock I could go home and maybe have a quiet dinner and sit on my porch. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon that I'm home, I leave town. And I shouldn't have to do that. I can't have my family over to enjoy a quiet picnic on my lawn on the weekend. I can't do it during the week. They have jobs. I can't do it on the weekend because it's blaring. And there have been days when my door actually vibrated from the sound. And so I just leave. And now you want to extend that till 10 o'clock at night when my grandchildren spend the night. Am I supposed to say, okay, no bedtime tonight until 10:30 or 11? You know, it's a residential neighborhood and we'd like to keep it that way.
And we have called the sheriff and he told us there was no noise ordinance, so he couldn't do anything about it.
There is, as you all know, there is in fact a noise ordinance. And the measurements that I took last year were within the noise ordinance. And also I am not looking to go till 10 p.m. every night. That was by special permit to do a bigger show, potentially 4 times over the course of a season. Up to now, all my outdoor entertainment has ended at 5 p.m.
Okay, but that means Saturdays and Sundays, I
That's
have
right,
to
ma'am.
leave town for peace and quiet. When do I get to enjoy a weekend at my camp?
Excuse me, could you direct your comments to the chair, please?
I'm sorry.
We all got to get used to it, so we'll be fair. Any other public comments? Elias, do you have a comment?
Tell Elias to unmute himself.
You have to unmute yourself, Elias, I think. There you go.
Thank you.
Hi.
Jane and I have lived here since 1970, and we've been in the. We're also a fairly close neighbor. We're about 500 feet up the road, and actually the music is generally aimed out at Route 109. It is a commercially zoned property, and I've been very impressed by the fact that the folks who are patrons of Iron Tales are very respectful. Most often, not always, but most often, the noise that comes out of from the motorcycles leaving Iron Tales is at a minimum. I can't say that for the other establishment up the road from us on 109. But generally speaking, we've been very, very content with the respect that has been shown to the neighborhood on along 109 and across over by the fairgrounds and so forth. And so I think that that Mr. Martinez and his organization has certainly been very strong in striving to be cooperative and to be understanding of the fact that people are trying to enjoy their lives. But I think that the fact that the property is zoned commercially, when people purchase property in the area, and I've been doing that for 52 years here in this immediate area, they are aware of the fact that there are commercial properties in the area, and understand that there may be some inconveniences as a part of that. But I think that they have been minimal with respect to Mr. Martinez and the way he has operated his business there very respectfully. Wasn't quite the same way with the previous owners.
Mr. Thomas. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, Sister Claire.
I'd just like to respond to the previous comment. When it was an indoor restaurant or pub, whatever, there was a difference, in that we didn't have the music exterior to the building. And that made a difference. It's only been in the past couple of years that we're experiencing this. We understood. We had our property there when it was still part of the Apple Orchard organization. So, it's not like we're going to move now that there's a different commercial enterprise. I think it would be unreasonable specifically to extend those hours, especially on the weekends. I just find that it's not in keeping. I can't imagine but that the sound resounds over the pond as well. Maybe not to the extent that we have it, but I think there's a certain limit that should be introduced, and no different from what people have experienced with other areas where we have shows that get put on during the summer on the outdoors, and the neighborhood ends up speaking to the issue, and sometimes it does get addressed. But to extend it beyond what we're already experiencing, to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Thank you, Sister Claire. Any other comments from the public or?
I think if there's no other comments from the public, the applicant should be given a chance to address some of those comments. And then if there's anything new that comes out or questions that are coming out of those comments, it might be fair to give the members of the public one more chance to make a comment or ask a question as part of the public hearing process.
Martinez, would you like to add anything? Excuse me.
Probably nothing that's gonna change any minds of the people on the surrounding residential properties. Just kind of to repeat that I work hard to stay within the noise ordinance, and I am not looking to extend daily shows. Primarily, I end my outdoor music at 5 p.m. I was looking to do a couple of bigger about 3 or 4 bigger shows over the course of the season that would go into the evening and potentially could be beyond the noise ordinance. And I'm just, like I say, I'm being forward and honest. And these, I was unaware prior to this very moment that these folks had issues prior to. When, like I said, I've been doing the outdoor music for over 10 years now. And, the noise levels have never been an issue until this past year. So all I can do is continue to, like the sound engineers said, I have to self-monitor and make sure that I'm within the noise ordinance. And that's all I can do. I mean, music, the outdoors is what my business is about. Live music is what my business is about, and it has been. We've always operated outdoors, and that's what people come for. And I certainly, I feel badly that folks can't enjoy their property. But in the same token, I got a lot of folks that enjoy my property.
At this rate, we're going to close the public part of it, and we'll move to board discussion. Lawrence Walsh again.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that we have called the bar several times about the noise.
This has been an
This is not
issue.
the first time.
He did know, because we have called him. We gave up a couple years ago, but we have called him in previous years and asked him to turn it down. So he did know. You did know. We talked to you on the phone.
Specifically? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I'm not saying that you did not. I just don't remember folks' names. And I only over the course of my time there for 10 years, I think I've had, outside of a couple of calls from the police, the sheriff's department, I've had only 2 calls from local residents, and perhaps that was you.
And to Sister Claire's point, this was never an issue until you started outside.
Music in the bar is, when we bought our property, we knew there was a bar there, but there were also a bigger buffer of trees, and the previous owner chopped down a lot of those trees, and that made it worse. We appreciated that you didn't run it into the night, but there's hardly any buffer between us, and I don't think an 8-foot wall is going to help, but I don't know what else to say. When we bought our property, we knew there was a bar. We did not know there were going to be outdoor bands every weekend or nearly every weekend.
And I think Sister Claire would agree. It's ruined our property.
This is
It's ruined the
something,
enjoyment of it.
if we sell our property, this is something I'm going to have to disclose to the new buyers, and this is going to hurt the value of my land.
Okay, thank you. At this moment, I'm going to close the public comment down.
Thank you.
And move to board discussion. I thank everybody for taking their time out. Any questions or comments from the board?
I don't know where everybody else is.
Ben?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to remind the board that this is the second time this item has been on the agenda. The first time it was on the planning board agenda was February 18th. And at that meeting, there was some discussion around some potential considerations that had to do with the overall number of shows, with potential discussion on the hours of operations, or at least the hours of outdoor entertainment, outdoor music. I think that the board had also asked for some clarification around lighting of the outdoor space and how that was going to be planned for around the fencing requirements. And I'm not sure if the applicant maybe should address if there's going to be any changes to proposed lighting with the proposed changes to the fence. And I think finally there was also some discussion around the parking area shown on the plan. And I do have that plan if you'd like to have that screen shared at some point, Mr. Chairman. But thinking about trees or some kind of plantings either in the parking area or at the I believe that corner of the property where the fence and the stage met, kind of at the corner of 109 and the side road there. So I think that the homework was certainly going to be, I had an expectation that there was going to be some information from the sound engineers in particular. Mr. Martinez has shared some of those conversations with us. But I think that in addition to what we've heard from folks this evening, these were some of the items where we left off back in February. So thank you.
Okay, I just want to have the board look at page 57 of 108 on the zoning ordinance pamphlet. And once everybody gets to that, I'll move forward to it. If you can let me know, please. And I'll read the paragraph so everyone else can hear it as well.
Is there any way to screen share that?
Not right now.
Not right now, sorry, Craig.
You have it electronically, no?
I enabled screen share for participants, so if you want to try.
I'm not sure if Chris has it electronically on that laptop, though.
No, but I'll read it to everybody, and if anyone...
I'd be happy to bring it up if you'd like. Just let me know how you'd like to proceed.
Well, just go ahead and read it, and
Okay.
I'll just...
Is all the board members found it and whatnot? So under findings and purpose, it is recognized that people have the right to and should be ensured an environment free from excess noise that may jeopardize their health, safety, or welfare, or degrade the quality of life. This section is enacted to protect, preserve, and promote healthy, safety, welfare, and quality of life through reduction, control, and prevention of excessive noise. And basically, that's the purpose of the overall noise ordinance. And Gavin, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that on the next page, page 58, there's a little chart that gives the decibel readings. it denotes that the commercial district should not exceed 60 decibels at the property line during the daytime and 50 decibels at the property at night. And perhaps we could.
I could have got a reader and put it up on property.
Well, he did it. He had his son.
Well, yeah, Larry.
Mr. Walsh, would you mind muting your microphone?
I was wondering about fence, why we're reducing from 12 feet to 8 feet. Speak
Yeah,
a little
I think
bit
you're
more about
frozen,
that.
Gavin. That's you talking.
Seems to have potentially frozen. Oh, come back.
I didn't get the question. I'm sorry. The audio is not working properly, I guess. Can you repeat the question?
Gavin, did you have a question for Greg? Because I think you froze, didn't you?
Yeah, that's what seemed to have happened.
I think he was talking about why the reduction from a 12-foot fence to an 8-foot fence.
Sure, yes, I was hoping. And,
Froze again.
I think I've got the gist of the question, though, and the answer is simply because of the distance from where the stage is, it will be erected. It's too far away to be effective in dampening the sound. There is a 3-foot knee wall that I'm going to be putting around the pad that actually surrounds the stage that will do more than the larger wall. So that's, and obviously I proposed it, I reduced it to 8 feet.
With the new.
I'm just not getting any of that. He's got a connection problem.
Jen, are you here? Can you help Gavin?
Yeah, Gavin.
Are you in the building?
Or Mike?
I don't know if you know Gavin, but you're frozen.
Gavin, close your Zoom and come back into the meeting.
What I'm supposed to do about it.
You talked over him. Nobody heard it.
Gavin, quit your Zoom and then come back into the meeting. It would fix it.
Mr. Chair, maybe while we're waiting for Gavin, would it be all right if I asked a question?
Yeah, and actually, could I mind if I throw one out there so we can ponder on it? Can we have Mr. Martinez effectively comply with the sound ordinances as he?
Can he demonstrate?
Can he demonstrate that he actually has tried to comply with the sound ordinances?
I should be all right.
What do you mean, can I demonstrate? I mean, I had a sound meter and I took several readings, even not even quite to the property line, within the property line, but I mean, it's my right. I mean, I've got phone video of it being taken in the reading, but I certainly don't know how to share that in this venue.
Okay, Ben, do you have a question?
I think it was related to the construction of the fence. I can see that Gavin is back with us, so maybe I'll defer to him. I know that's kind of where he was going with this question.
Yes, I was wondering what the height of the knee wall was.
3 feet. 3 feet with a shelf on it of about 2 inches. So actually, the concrete pad is raised off the ground, so 4 feet. But actually that would be irrelevant because the stage is on the same pad, so 3 feet, and that's at a distance of about 75 feet from the stage. And that will serve as a baffle, if you will.
Yes, Pat?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Mr. Martinez, how do you determine how much noise comes out of a speaker? How much music is, I'm not familiar, so I'm just asking the question. So if you were going to mitigate the sound, is there a way to turn it down a little bit?
Yes. Of course there is. And every time a band sets up, they've got their own equipment and they have their own idea of what's reasonable. Trust me, I know. And so I have to take readings, and my sound engineer is he proposes to set me up with equipment that will indicate when the band is above the sound ordinance. And that would be constantly running during the performance.
So is it reasonable to assume that a band would like to have the music as loud as possible? They probably wouldn't want to tone it down because that's what a band does? Is that what you're trying to say? They have their ideas?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But I mean, if anybody that's been to a concert, usually the music is loud for all to hear at whatever the venue may be it, the Freiburg Fair or the Civic Center. But what I'm saying is they all come with their own sound equipment. So I would have to monitor with my sound equipment, my sound monitoring, to let them know what level they need to be at.
So in other words, you can control this a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. And like I say, I have in the past. If I, but to be quite honest with you, I never had an opportunity to be above the noise ordinance from the time that I started checking on it till the time I got my monitoring equipment and could take a reading. And that was probably mid-season, maybe somewhere in late June, early July.
So I guess what I'm wondering, is it reasonable to think that there's a way that there can be full transparency for what you've taken for measurements? So if I'm just trying to think of a way that you could work with the neighbors.
Right, understood.
Work with the people that are having a problem with this. I'm just wondering, is that possible?
Well, I had, I don't know if it was at the meeting, but I proposed that we mark out my property line and make it known to members of the board, the code enforcement officer, the sheriff's department, to go in with their own equipment and take a reading when there's a complaint. I think that's the best way to handle it. I can go out there and I can take a reading and say it's accurate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the neighbors are going to buy it, or the neighbors like what they're hearing. So they would in turn call the police or make a complaint with code enforcement. So, there would have to be obviously a third party that comes in and takes a reading when there's a complaint, if and when there's a complaint.
So, Mr. Martinez, when I know that we talked about this a little bit at the first meeting. When I look at this on page 58, it has a little a block on sound pressure level limits, and you talked about decibels. So in a residential area for daytime, can you, and I think you did this before, correct me if I'm wrong, a 50 decibels would sound similar for those of us that don't really understand decibels? What would that sound like? Would it be a tractor? Would it be like what is 50 decibels?
Well, I wish I had those answers for you in my paperwork. I had those before. To give me, I mean, all that information is easily found on the internet. 50 decibels is somewhere near speech. Speech is at 50 decibels, believe it or not. And it was somewhere in my submission. Like I said, that information, it's not as, I don't think it's the issue of the sound. I think that, the neighbors are, their issue is the continuing sound. But like I said, 50 decibels, it's not much at all. I think a lawnmower is 90 to 120. I can look. I can take a peek at the internet, and because like I said, I don't have that paperwork with me, but I did have the chart with me at the meeting.
Thank you.
Martinez?
Yes.
Is there any way that you could provide the board with any sound decibel documentation? I guess we're kind of leaning towards that.
Repeat the question. You broke up. Some documentation on what?
On any of the sound decibel readings that you've had.
Yes. Yeah. I can forward videos that I have in my cell phone, and the distances will be obvious. There's some that I'm standing right at the corner of the asphalt that goes to the rear of the property, and then the other is generally in the same direction but out in the woods. I'm not sure. I don't believe I was quite to the property line. So just if you give me an email or send me an email with some phone numbers, I can email it or text the video or whatever.
I guess what I'm saying, we're trying to figure everything out, is that if we could get someone that's as a professional that can, with calibrated equipment, document it versus cell phone or whatnot, or a YouTube video. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, it's not a YouTube video. It's a video from my phone where I was operating the sound, the meter that I had purchased to answer my questions about the sound level. So I guess what the board's going to look for is, someone independent of myself. Is that what you're asking for? Because in that case, I mean, obviously that can't happen until the next live music show.
Dennis?
Dennis is muted.
Dennis, you have to mute.
Oh, go there.
Dennis, go ahead.
He's muted.
Yeah, I see it still. Jen? Is Jen there?
Dennis, I think you can either click the microphone button down in the bottom left-hand corner, or even just press the space bar. I think that'll temporarily unmute you.
No, still on mute, Dennis.
Yeah, how's that?
Yeah, loud and
There he is.
Now you can hear me.
yeah, we've been.
I was just saying that normally when I speak, the decibels have been measured on me, and I do exceed the decibel levels that's in a good neighborhood policy. So that gives you some idea what you're looking at.
So according to what I'm seeing here on the internet, and anybody can look at it, the average noise home is about 45 decibels. Office noise inside a car at 60 miles an hour is 70. Heavy traffic, window, air conditioner, noisy restaurant, power, lawnmower, 80 to 89. Chainsaw, leaf blower, snowmobile is at 106. So that just gives an idea of what I'm seeing on the internet, just doing a quick search. So it doesn't take a whole lot of noise to get to 60. Like say 60 is normal conversation or background music is 60.
Yes, Gavin?
Yes, I would hope that the applicant would consider replanting some trees in the back of the property to buffer the sound, and maybe provide a drawing of proposed plantings that could help with this issue.
The trees on the back side of the property, well, since I bought the property, I have cut no trees. And the trees on the back side of the property they're primarily maples. I'm guessing somewhere in the area 40 foot tall. That would kind of be cost prohibitive to outdo that. I'm not real sure how planting more trees at the back side of the property would change much. Because like I said, that the 12-foot high fence doesn't help, according to the sound engineers.
Perhaps we could add a lower hedge of thicker bushes like arborvitaes that would help where there's not as many branches on those trees where the sound's traveling through the trunks. You'd still have the foliage at the top of the tree to help up there, but maybe something that would help direct the sound upward.
I will certainly consult with the sound engineer and get some written documentation if that makes sense to do it. If that is effective, I will certainly agree to do that.
Okay.
But like I say, I need to make sure it's going to be effective, or it's an exercise in futility.
Absolutely. Perhaps the sound engineer would have other ideas that would help with this other than vegetation or a fence.
Perhaps he would. I think the information that he did give me via that email was based on what the plan was. So, he pretty much is kind of narrowed it down to, self-policing and self-monitoring. And he talked about the equipment that I could use to do that.
Have you given any consideration to the islands in the parking lot that may have vegetation to help break up the sound within the lot?
Well, are you still talking about the back lot that's going to be fenced in?
Yes, on the Milton Mills side.
On the back side of the property?
Yes, where you're proposed to have motorcycle parking.
Well, that's going to be all gravel parking, as it has been since I've been there.
The ordinance asks that we have one island per 20 parking spaces, and I'm hoping that having some vegetated islands will help break up the sound as it travels through the parking lot. Maybe the sound engineer would comment on that as well.
I will specifically ask him that.
Pat, did you have a question? And I saw Ben had a question.
Well, go ahead, Ben. I'm looking for some information.
Okay, Ben, you're up.
Hey, thanks. I see John has his hand up as well. I don't know who was first, but
I believe John was first.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Oh, actually, Gavin asked the question that I was going to ask is, could Greg get some opinion or some advice from the sound engineer? Are there any other ways that either the vegetation or other ways that we haven't thought of that could help dampen the sound?
Yeah, I will be contacting him in the morning because he's asked me to keep him updated on the progress. And so I will bring him up to speed on our conversations this evening and the request and see what he comes up with for me. And I will have him, bring, forward documentation. Is there any benefit? Do you want me to forward my own sound readings, the videos that I took on my phone? Is there any benefit to that?
I'd probably lead more towards a professional sound engineer documentation. I mean, a cell phone, it's going to change anything, as all of us would know.
No, I just was recording the reading. I was recording my sound meter.
Oh.
While it was, just as proof that I wasn't at my property line, and that I was taking the reading. The reading was videotaped. Obviously you probably can hear some sound on the phone as well, on the phone recording. And like I said earlier, all that being said, if I'm gonna bring a professional in to do a noise reading, obviously there's gonna have to be that it'll have to take place at the next event, which would be my opening weekend.
John's hand went back up, and then Ben as well.
Okay, do you want to go to Ben first, and then we'll follow up with Gavin?
thank you. I do hear the conversation about tree plantings and fencing and those kinds of things, but we had also suggested an approach that I think based on the hours of operation, or at least when outdoor entertainment would be permitted, that would avoid some of the complications with either, at certain points, whether it's, 49 decibels or 53 decibels, or if it's sometimes atmospheric conditions can also affect the quality of noise, how far sound carries. I think it would be, as we think about looking ahead, I would suggest to the board that they consider using time of day as there can be music between these hours, and if there's music outside of those hours, then that would be the regulating factor as far as ease of enforcement and understanding for all involved. That we haven't talked about that this evening, but I was wondering if the board or the applicant had thoughts on an approach like that.
Well, that's what I was suggesting, because I believe I put it in writing, and also I spoke of it the last time we met about historically when my live music took place outdoors, primarily Saturday and Sunday, always done by 5 p.m. Outside of Bike Week, I do shows throughout Bike Week, but it's during the week it's just a one-man acoustic playing a guitar during the day, and then the evening show that on the weekends ends at 5 p.m. Anything beyond those hours is what we are talking about, requiring a special permit. As that's why we're here also. So anything beyond the hours of 5 p.m., if I was going to go, have a show that could go, for example, end at 10 o'clock, because I do close at 10 o'clock, mind you all. I don't stay open till 1 o'clock. There's no noise. There's no bodies at the saloon at 11 p.m. We're locked up tight. Although I could stay open till 1 o'clock, that's not how I operate. That's never how I've operated. So anything outside of the 5 p.m. any period of my standard music that I do on weekends, I would have to get a special permit, mass gathering permit. which means going before the selectmen. And as we spoke of in the previous meeting, that would be on a case-by-case basis. And also, obviously, if the performance was poor on the first event, there wouldn't be a second event because they have the control to do that. The control is in the hands of the board of selectmen. Does that answer questions, Ben?
Yeah, to me, that seems like a relatively straightforward condition of approval, potentially, to say all outside music must be over by 5 p.m. unless it's a special permits granted by the select board. And that I don't know if that would meet the intent of what the board's wrestling with here about the levels of sound, but it would kind of shortcut that conversation, just make it a little more clean to understand and enforce, I think. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair. I know there's a couple other hands raised.
I think Gavin was up next, if I remember correctly.
I'll let someone else go first right now.
Pat?
Okay, so what I was wondering about is I'm not really clear, and I'm asking this question. I'm referring to some notes that we had with regard to the first meeting. And it says, let's see, Greg Martinez, owner at Iron Tails Saloon, explained to members that previous CEO notified him in 2020 that his existing conditional use permit from 2011 did not allow outdoor music and events at his business. And I remember we were talking about picnic tables and outdoor food and things like that. So are we just talking about the noise, the music level, the decibels, or are we talking about some of these other things like outdoor seating, additional parking, some of the things that we talked about in the last one? I just want to be clear on what we're talking about.
For the update on the conditional use permit, the only part of that needed updating was the outdoor entertainment. Everything else was in order from what I was told by the code enforcement and secretary, that they found it, in their paperwork, that I did have approvals. Also, I mean, there was outdoor dining prior to my taking over the business. I don't know if there was outdoor entertainment. I can't say, but I can say that when I took over in 2011, I started doing outdoor entertainment.
So you were having some music inside?
Oh yeah, when my shows at night, I did inside.
Yeah.
And what I'm as not to be repetitive, but what I'm asking for is, special permit possibilities for some bigger shows outside to bring some bigger name bands in.
And what about the conditional use permit for music outside? What are you asking for that? To have outside music?
Well, just to be allowed to continue it as I've done from
Okay.
2011. I was notified by code enforcement midsummer that I needed to. His words were, I need to update my conditional use permit.
Okay, because that's why I'm asking the question.
Yes. Yep.
I just want to be sure on what we're talking about here.
Sure.
That's all I have. Anybody else?
I think John's had his hand up for a while, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay. Sorry, John.
That's quite all right. Just to a previous question, Greg, I think it would be helpful just as a data point to send that video in for the board to view.
Absolutely.
Data point. Again, I think talking to your sound engineer and maybe getting an independent reading is or get their thoughts is appropriate. But I just kind of want to follow on Pat's clarity question. in the memo you sent us on 2 February, you talked about your usual business, the holidays, the bike week, the Saturday and Sunday. But in that paragraph, you also mentioned a Friday night from, I think, 6 to 10. So
Yeah.
you currently do or do not run concerts at night?
I have been doing last summer, about August, I started doing some Friday evening shows from 6 to 9.
Okay. So again, for clarity, the larger shows, the one-off shows that would need, the big improvement, that's not this Friday night deal. So you're asking us to approve your current process, which includes Friday night.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. See, that's a little bit different than what we had just been talking about.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm so used to that routine is different to me. Like I said, I started doing the Friday evening shows about midsummer last year, and they were under the tent in the backyard, and they ran from 6 to 9 p.m. But I still contend that they were within the sound ordinance, and they were done at 9 p.m. Not that that's of any consolation or whatever, but I'm still within the ordinance. And also, worst case scenario, if that's a bargaining point, I put those shows inside. I'd rather not, because my customer base likes to be outdoors. It's summertime and they want to enjoy outside.
I have a question down here from Mike Demers. I'm going to just slide the computer towards him.
Acting Deputy CEO, Acton. I just wanted to propose another course for the board to consider, is that you're considering the approval or disapproval of this conditional use, and Mr. Martinez could potentially comply with the decibel readings, but not in harmony with the overall nature of the ordinance, where quality of life of neighboring people might be affected. I just wanted to stress that is still a consideration and should be taken into account in the process of this conditional use. It is not, let's find a way to make it happen. It's whether there are sufficient implications on neighbors as well. They do have that right to a welfare, quality of life, and that shouldn't be understated. Thank you.
Time I'll entertain any motions anyone would like to propose. Gavin,
If I could just add something, I've been operating the same fashion for 11 years, and this was a apparently something, an afterthought, or it wasn't seen earlier that I can't, I'm not allowed to do outdoor music. Well, I built a business on live music, and I get a lot of people from around the property lines that enjoy it. They come, they patronize me, and they don't complain. I mean, outside of the folks that are directly behind me, there's a lot of folks in town, a lot of folks surround me, and I get a lot of support from them. And the amount of music I've done over 11 years, the minimal amount of complaints should speak for itself. I've got a good track record, and I do work hard to be a good neighbor. We had problems with burnouts last year. A neighbor came to me and spoke to me in person, and I corrected it immediately. And my customers were more than cooperative and made it happen.
Papa, I may have to go potty.
Okay, honey. Please.
Kevin, I saw you had your Gavin first.
I'm sorry.
No. Want to try?
Gavin, are you frozen again? Or no?
No,
You're on.
I was going to make a motion to table this until we get the sound engineer's report, so to speak. But I see Dennis has his hand up too.
Yeah, we'll listen to it. Have Dennis come on. I think you'll have to unmute it. You're still
Hit the
muted.
space bar, Dennis.
You're still muted, Dennis. No, Dennis, you're still muted.
Dennis said, there you go.
No, there we
Maybe
go.
I'm going too long without talking. Geez, isn't that a strange thing to happen? I guess it's just my opinion. We have the decibels in the good neighbor policy for a reason. It was a standard that was set up to protect the neighborhood. And obviously, Mr. Martinez can't do any, nobody can, any decibel readings until he starts up again, because there's nothing to meter. I do know he said in the past that he had a professional meter that he had purchased, and Kenny had said the same thing at the time. When he started expanding on his outdoor music last year, like he did too, a lot of that was brought up by the COVID and the regulations from the governor, and which, I mean, everybody was in a bad time. But I believe that the only thing we can consider is what's on the application, and it's to do with outside entertainment. And if he stays within the criteria of the decibel levels, he's been a very good business for the town of Acton. He's done a lot of fundraisers. He's always trying to be very accommodating, and he's given nobody any reason not to take him at his word. You have to understand, from my point of view, I have always voted as a citizen not to have any of these places in town. I don't like them. I don't drink myself. I don't go there to eat. But I also do defend his right to be able to do this, because it's all been legitimate. It's been the vote of the community in past planning boards. What he's asking for, to me, is more than reasonable. And I'll make a motion, unless there's other questions, that we close the public hearing and move on.
Yeah, Jim has a question for us here. I see him wave.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Everybody else hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on an iPhone, so I'm having trouble. I'm not exactly something. Yeah, I'd just like to say that, give you an example of sound decibel. I've been doing a lot of it lately. A barking dog is about 70 to 90. A rooster is anywhere from 90 to 130. And whenever these problems happen, it's believe me, those folks hearing those noises are every bit as upset as the folks that you're hearing from tonight. Noise is noise, but the way they always get rectified every single time is it's never really about the animals. You can get through that. It's about being a good neighbor and working together. And you know, that building was used prior to before Greg got here. And, everything Mr. Martinez has done is it's always been he lived up to his word. And an honest guy, and he still has some of the New Hampshire State Trooper in him, you know, that he used to be. He used to wander the parking lot at night, a couple times a night, check the place. He's he does everything. He runs a tight ship down there, and he's got several $100,000 invested in that. When he bought that, he invested that. He, he took the time to understand what the ordinances were, and he's been a good neighbor. And I sympathize with those folks down there. In regards to property values, within the last year, I drew up an analysis on 2 properties. One was on Loop Road, the other was on Middle Road, right up back. And this place had no effect on that at all. Both of them came in really high. I mean, Elias could speak to that more than I could. He's an expert in the field, but it had 0 effect on the value of the properties out there. But with that being said, I just piggyback on what Dennis said, and I sympathize with the neighbors. But a man has a huge investment. He's been a great neighbor. He's allowed folks to go in there well over $100,000, just being a good neighbor. Honestly, the mind, those kids, and PTG, the veteran cemetery. You walk through that veteran cemetery and you see the new walkways down there. A lot of that's because of Greg Martinez. So he's been a good neighbor. We've been really fortunate here in Acton. That's about all I have to say.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Jim. And that is, what's factually true is I do love the town of Acton. I make no bones about that. Everybody knows how I feel about the town of Acton. And I do want to be a good neighbor. And I really work hard to be a good neighbor. And I will continue to do that. As far as the folks that border my property, I will be contacting the sound engineer. I will get and I will refer all the information to the board going forward. And I will take whatever steps necessary within reason to improve your quality of life being, bordering my property. Because I certainly don't have any intention of upsetting anybody. My game is to make people happy and bring people together. And I want to continue to do that. And all I can do is what I can do.
Gavin had a motion first, I believe, right, Gavin?
Yes, so just a motion to move on to the next agenda item until we get more information.
Do I hear a second on Gavin's motion to table it?
I'll second.
Oh, John, sorry. John, did you second it?
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Question for the board beforehand. I open April 29th and I have outdoor entertainment planned for my daytime shows. In order to get accurate assessments of the sound generated and how to mitigate sound, I'm asking that I can continue to do that. And so we have an example to work with.
Well, for
What the board's considering, that's kind of.
What the board's considering, it's kind of irrelevant within this meeting right now, Greg. Unfortunately, and I think we're going to continue with the motions of Gavin to table it for right now. And I think we were on a vote, all in favor of tabling for this moment.
I think we're supposed to do a roll call, so I say yes. Chris, if you just address each member and ask them, and they verbally say as opposed to raise their hand, I guess is what we're supposed to do.
Okay, I'll start with Gavin.
Yes.
Jim.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand, Jim, if you're in favor of tabling it. We can't hear you. I'm gonna go to Dennis. I'll come back to Jim.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Pat. Unmute. You're on mute, Pat.
Okay, I don't think that I'm voting tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Sorry.
And, Jim.
Yep.
That's okay. Jim, we can't hear you, so. I don't. Well,
He raised his hand with a yes, I believe.
did he? Did you raise your hand with a yes, Jim, or? Okay.
So to be clear, we're asking for.
So to be clear, we're asking Greg for professional documentation on the sound, and the table before we make any further votes towards this.
Clarification, please. I understand the piece where I'm going to contact the sound engineer and, you know, put together an assessment to submit to the board. But there won't be any, there's not going to be a sample. Do you follow me? Unless I have a show outside. So this is where we run into trouble. Or this is where we run into a problem.
That's really not something the board can consider at this moment, and no one's really telling you not to do a show.
Okay.
Well.
Okay, well, I will contact my sound engineers tomorrow, bring them up to date, and go forward with them, and all this, you know, submit whatever they can offer. And I will also specifically ask about vegetation and how it potentially could help with sound buffering. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Is that all? Are we? Does anybody else have any questions? Are we through, or?
Yeah, we're all set, Greg. Thank you. We're going to move on to new business.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
So just ask Joe Stanley, I think, is representing.
Yeah. New business would be York County Agricultural Association, Route 109 and 13th Street, map 241, lot 003. Site plan review application to create parking area for the Acton Fairgrounds. And I believe Joe Stanley is representing the fairgrounds. Where is he?
Yes, I'm right here. Is everybody able to hear me?
Yeah, everything was getting shifted around, so you were in the shuffle.
Perfect. Well, good to see you guys. First time I've seen you on the video capacity here, the Zoom meeting. Hopefully everything will go smoothly. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Joe Stanley with Lime Pro Land Surveying. I'm at this meeting on behalf of the York County Agricultural Association and the Fairgrounds. And to get anybody who hasn't been involved up to speed, we submitted this project right before COVID. A couple months before, we had gone through 3 or 4 meetings, site walk, public hearing with this project as a conditional use permit. And then, everyone's world changed, and there were a few meetings that didn't happen, and there was some turnover with the board. And long story short, Ken Paul basically said that we're going to kind of resubmit, start over to get a quorum, get a board that was up to speed with all of this stuff, so we could then proceed to hopefully get a vote here at some point. So, quick summary: the project the majority of it's on 13th Street, right across from where the main fairgrounds are. What we've presented is a site plan for a parking area over in that area, with the long-term goal being to over time kind of regrade the site considerably, and create parking over there. So we would no longer need people parking on Route 109 during the evenings, during the big major fair events. What we had discussed at that point in time, part of all this, once the parking lot was finally put together, we would actually work with DOT on some signage to prevent people from parking out on the main road, and hopefully create a much safer environment for all the families who want to park and go to the fairgrounds. So what we're proposing, and again, we resubmitted this on the suggestion of Ken Paul at the time. We resubmitted this as a site plan. We felt like this was the site plan review process was more applicable here. Looking at the land use charts and everything else, this was an allowed use in a zone for parking areas, and a lot of the work somewhat incidental to the creation of that parking area. So what we've submitted is a plan, an engineering plan, grading plan, and stormwater runoff plan set prepared by the engineers over at Sebago Technic, which meet all of the applicable performance standards for a parking area to be constructed. What we're looking at is potentially being able to create up to 429 parking spaces there long term, but it will be a process. It's not something where they're going to go in and try to take care of all this at one particular time. As time grows, and what they're envisioning there for a final parking area isn't necessarily like you would picture at a mall or at a store, a paved lot or something like that. What we're envisioning is more like a parking area that exists now within the fairgrounds. It's primarily grass surface throughout most of the year, but those couple events when there are larger influxes of people that come to those events, parking is created out in those field areas, kind of in a more temporary arrangement to allow for that parking to be basically anywhere out besides out on the road. So long term, the vision for this area is to completely regrade it, make it more of a flat surface with some minor slopes to it to take care of the stormwater runoff as Sebago Technics has designed it. But 50 weeks out of the year, most of the year it would be a grass surface, a vegetated surface, and then in the bigger events, some temporary lighting, temporary parking attendants and things like that would be brought in to help keep it organized, an organized parking situation over there as those larger events occur. So I guess I'm trying to make sure, in my head, I'm trying to be cognizant of the fact that most of the board members, haven't, we're just getting up to speed with this. But, in my own head, I'm saying, going, okay, we've discussed a lot of these things multiple times already. So, I'm happy to answer any questions or get into the details, guys, about all of this.
Yeah, I think Gavin has a question for you, Joe.
Yes, I was wondering if you gave any more thought to the concept of this being two conditional use permits, one for the mineral extraction and one for the parking lot, Joe.
I guess that's part of what the discussion would be, early on in this process. I know things are very different now at the town hall even than they were at that point in time. But when Ken Paul and I were having discussions about all this kind of during the beginning of COVID, and as we started to realize we had to resubmit, he was starting to look at this more as a permitted use in a zone where these things are permitted. And this wasn't, he didn't feel that this was any sort of commercial mineral extraction operation that was going to be going on. But, I'm sure that's a discussion we need to have, at this point in the approval process.
Gavin, you have another question?
Yes, I was wondering about how many yards of material are going to be removed from the site in order to achieve this goal.
I know it should be on record. We had discussed this before. You like to ask that question. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue at this point in time, but I can certainly have that number. I can get it from Craig again, and Craig is the engineer, by the way, over at Sevigo Technics. If that's an important number, we can either dig it out of the minutes from the other discussions we've had, or I can ask Greg to send that over again.
You have a question?
Sorry about that. So Joe, of your, I think it's 14 acres over there. That's on the plan.
Yep.
How I noticed that on the plan, it looks like a lot of it's cleared. How much of the 14 acres is not cleared? I mean, as far as the banking goes, as far as taking out the gravel, and would you be taking any of that gravel and just redistributing it on the property to make the parking lot?
I mean, there would be some on-site redistribution of that material, but there's definitely, a fair amount of it that would need to come out to make a surface flat enough for people to park on. But you also have to leave a certain amount of pitch just to get the stormwater to go to the two structures that the engineers are proposing. Most of what would need to be cleared, I believe, already is. There's, I think it's shown on my plans a little bit. It's apparent on the grading plan provided by the engineer too. There's currently a kind of a stand of trees between the heavily cleared area and 13th Street. Most or all of that is intended to remain in place. You can kind of see there's some curly or squiggly lines that denote where the trees are supposed to remain on the engineering plans. There is one area in that strip of forest that would need to be built as part of a drainage structure just to prevent any stormwater from leaving the site and entering 13th Street or Mr. McLeod's property there close by. So maybe if you look at my plan, right where you see the tax map and lot number, kind of in the center of the plan, you can see like a pink or a magenta area that says area required for drainage structures. That area, there would likely need to be a little bit more tree removal, but otherwise I think it's from a tree cutting perspective will remain significantly the same as it sits right now.
So are there any vernal pools or anything like that in that area? That must be a low area if the water's going there. It looks like a really nice plan. It looks really well thought out, and it's a great place, I think, to put the parking that's, really needed.
Well, we appreciate that feedback. We appreciate it, both positive and the opposite. But so basically, right now, the water does, the majority of it that would land on this property sheds down the existing hills that are there now in 213th Street. There are either two or three culverts that go under 13th Street that, over the years have tried to alleviate, any stormwater issues that might be there on the road. The engineer, Craig, has identified those culverts as being a bit undersized. So he's developed one drainage structure shown in the plans, again, in that small area where we need to do a little bit of tree clearing. And then down towards the easterly end of the property, down towards the sharp corner down there, there's already a small existing wet hole that's there. There was a limited amount of wetlands there that we did have mapped by a gentleman named Ken Gardner, who does a lot of that type of work.
Yeah.
But the plan is to kind of expand the size of the depression there to help capture any other water that may come through. And then the future parking areas would basically be built and graded in a fashion to divert the water to those two areas that were intended to treat it before the water ever reached 13th Street.
So you're saying on the easterly side, you would be removing trees to increase that depression?
Yeah, you're probably correct. A little to the east of that wet hole a little bit, and even that wet hole does have some vegetation. I mean, looking at Craig's plan, it's not like they're trying to dig a deep pond there. I think it's about, the depression is two or 3 feet deep. That they're just kind of create a structure there for the water to seep into the ground after it's been captured. But yes, certainly they're probably during the grading process of that, there may be a little bit more vegetation removal. You're certainly correct on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ben.
Yeah, I had submitted a memo, and I think that was included in your packets. We were reviewing this as a sketch plan this evening. It's a chance for the applicant to introduce the project and for folks to ask questions, get a sense of the project. I think most of my comments and questions kind of fell into the categories around vehicular and pedestrian circulation. There's two entrances shown to the parking area, but it is a really long parking area. So I have questions about that and how people get over to the fairgrounds based on that and move around the parking lot. And then the other comments I had were related to kind of the soil and erosion control concerns with the 3-to-1 bank at the back of the parking lot. As that area gets excavated out, a 3-to-1 slope is fairly steep. It's about the limits of what you'd see on the side of a roadway. And it's where you start to see guardrail on edges of roadway when they have 3-to-1 slopes. So based on the extent of those 3-to-1 slopes, I was wondering if the applicant thought any kind of additional soil and erosion control measures would be worth considering beyond the loam and seed that's shown on the plan.
Minimum, so it's well within the standards.
All right, and if everybody's waiting for my response on that, well, at this point in time, some of those items I definitely will try to address, but some of the more, detailed or engineering related standards in regards to slopes and erosion. Craig is my favorite engineer to work with, and I trust him to have created a plan here that meets the town of Acton's performance standards in those regards. And so I have no doubt that he has done that. Some of the issues which Mr. Smith brought up, I have discussed once we got this feedback back. I have had some limited discussions with both Craig, the Acton, Roger Ridley with the Acton Fairgrounds, and Caleb Chessie, who helps over at the fairgrounds with a lot of the various earthwork and things that have gone over there in the past. At the previous meetings, we had discussed once these slopes, these 3-to-1 slopes at the back of the parking lot were finished, constructed, loam and seeded. We had discussed, planting either, some native trees or bushes, things of that nature. The fairgrounds and Mr. Ridley, stated they were still very much happy to do so to help stabilize those slopes on the back. I also mentioned it to Craig. He stated he was pretty confident in his design that most of these 3-to-1 slopes would not be subject to erosion, but in the case where a channel developed coming off the neighboring property uphill or whatnot, his suggestion was some form of erosion control blanket if that problem started to show itself, to apply something of that nature and kind of nip it, once we see how the construction has gone before the issue, became a significant one potentially. And then I also did talk to Mr. Ridley, a representative of the fairgrounds, about the potential issue and what are we going to do if we, if there really are, 300 people over there, the people furthest away from the fairgrounds, how do we get them to the proposed crosswalk area, the light, the gate? And he was more than happy to discuss, creating some sort of like crushed gravel walkway on the, on the southerly side of the parking lot, on the edge of the tree buffer that would be there to kind of keep people from wanting to wander out into 13th Street, in an unorganized fashion. But I mean, that was his suggestion that they would be happy to go along with. But again, they were, open to suggestions on that sort of thing as well.
Joe, are there will there be parking attendants during the events?
Yes, based on the feedback from the review notes that Mr. Smith gave us here, I did ask Roger that question. He said that yes, there certainly would be. Asked him for a number. He was, he was brainstorming on the spot. He said it would likely be, larger events like the actual Acton Fair. It would require 5 to 10 assistants to help keep organized parking over there. And I also did ask about lighting for an event that was larger like that. They had, we had proposed putting one more of a, I don't want to call it a permanent light because it will be on a switch, but where the anticipated pedestrian crossing of 13th Street would be, they plan on mounting a light to that pole to have, one, sort of permanent structure they can turn on demand. And then as they've done in the past in the parking area on the other side of the fairgrounds, the plan would be to those couple weekends a year when there was a larger crowd expected, they would be renting those portable light units that would be suitable for something like this.
Gavin?
Yes, I would suggest that we schedule a site walk so people can get an idea for the scale of the project on the ground.
Is that something that the board usually votes on, or is that a motion, or is that something the board would just kind of find consensus on? I'm used to seeing that kind of thing around decisions around sidewalks and public hearings and those kinds of things be motions and votes.
I'm pretty sure it's required in this case, given the scale of the activity, but I can make a motion. I make a motion that we have a site walk. But I was hoping for discussion as to when the board would like to do it.
Could I get a second on that motion? And then Dennis, I guess, do you have a question, Dennis?
Or is he seconding it?
Or are you seconding it? You're on mute again.
Dennis, push the space bar.
No, again.
Try holding the thing down.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to work.
It's still not working.
How's that?
Perfect.
Somebody's got to let me back in, I guess, or something. I don't know. I was just going to second Gavin's motion. That was all. But I thought I heard that John already did. So.
Yes, all in favor of a site walk. Discuss when and where.
You got to do a roll call vote on that, Chris. On Zoom meetings, you always have to do roll call votes.
Well, we'll start with you, Dennis, before you mute yourself out again. Are you
all right?
Hold on, John. Do you have a question?
Yeah, we certainly have to vote on that. Do we discuss now the when? Do it before we vote?
Can, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I only bring that up because the one or two I've done previously were Saturday. This Saturday, I'm not available.
Well, we can. Do you want to? Well, we can vote on it, and then we can discuss when we want to do the sidewalk. So
okay. I just
Dennis loses technology skills. Are you, Dennis? Are you in favor for a sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to Jim.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Yes.
Don.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when would everybody be available for a sidewalk? I mean, I could use the exercise too, so I'm in favor. Just as long as it's low impact.
I'm open to what anybody else wants.
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible. I mean, anyone have it? How are you? You want to schedule it right before the next meeting? That everybody's needs? Or
Fine with me.
which is, let me check. I lost all my. Want to do it on April 5th? Was it 15th? That'd be the next meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could do it at 5 o'clock. Would that be fair? Does that work? Yay or nay or?
set with it.
Yeah, Jim? Yeah, Jim. Time? Is that, Jim, is that what you're asking, what time? 5 o'clock.
Yeah, 5 o'clock.
Does 5 o'clock on the 15th work for the applicant?
Does that work for you, Joe?
I believe it will.
What was that?
Yeah.
Yes. Does the board want any more documentation before we move forward on this or the site walk? Dennis?
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. If I understand Ben's recommendation on this deal, if I read it correctly, what we need tonight is to accept the sketch plan. And that's the first process we need to follow. So I would make a motion to accept the sketch plan for the fairgrounds application.
Is there a second on this?
I'll second that.
With no additional documentation, Dennis?
Not at this time.
It's just a sketch plan, so.
Okay.
Right. You're just accepting it. That's all you're doing. You're not approving anything. You're just accepting it.
So all in favor of Dennis's motion? Gavin, you second. Jim second. Jim's got a question, I think, or is he seconding? Jim, I think you.
Can't hear you, Chris. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get Jim to.
All right.
I can see his lips moving, but nothing's coming out. You might have to see. You might have to send some smoke signals, Jim.
Jim, try unplugging your headphones and plugging them back in again.
Nothing yet.
I'll second the motion.
Gavin, second. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Dennis.
Yes.
Jim. Thumbs up. Gavin.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Okay. So the site walk will be April 15th at 5. And approved his sketch. So I think we're good. Are we going to open up to public comment or during next meeting? And Dennis has something to say.
I got, can you hear me, still hear me?
Yeah, you haven't muted yourself out. Like.
All right, there's two things I'd like to do here. Is one, ask that we do not do another Zoom meeting.
Right.
It absolutely does not work. You cannot hear half the people that are talking. And these are public proceedings. And the public does have the right to hear all the conversation and things like that, and it just doesn't work. Not for these things especially. And with that being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We get a second on Dennis's motion. Jim, give them the peace sign and John. Adjourning. Dennis?
Yes.
Jim? Thumbs up? Yeah. Gavin?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye.